Alright, hi everyone, welcome back to another social studies lecture. Alright, today we're going to talk about Unit 6 on the experience and effects of diversity with a focus in Singapore, of course. Okay, so in this topic, you basically learn about the interactions that people have in a diverse society. You'll learn about the benefits and also the challenges of living and being a part of such a diverse society. Okay, so like always, these are the learning objectives. All right. Okay, let's go. Okay, so the first thing you need to understand in this particular topic is about the idea of common space. Now, common space, this term, you'll be seeing it quite a lot in this chapter and of course in diversity chapter as a whole. Okay, so essentially, as we discussed in the previous videos, there have been an increase in diversity in Singapore because of the increase of number of migrants and immigrants that come to live, work and study in Singapore essentially. Okay, so this sharp rise in population has already led to increased diversity in Singapore, as you have noticed. Okay, so all the more the need for harmonious interactions. Okay, so let me just redraw this a little nicer. Okay, so harmonious interaction, okay, will actually bring us positive impacts, of course, for Singapore. Okay, disagreements, they are expected in such a society, right? Because we are all quite different from one another. From time to time, there will be problems when it comes to certain issues. So there will be disagreements and whatnot. So by creating common space, by creating a space where everyone are able to come together and have a good collaboration, good interaction with one another, we can actually prevent any disagreement from becoming serious conflicts. Alright, so this is what was seen in the racial riots, okay, in the pre-independent Singapore. Okay, so from our independence in 1965 onwards, we have always strived to prevent such terrible things from happening over and over again. Okay, so this is why we introduce or rather we have organizations that continuously create common space where anybody, regardless of what race, what religion, what SES you are, everybody can come together and we have good interaction, good collaboration, and as a result we have a stronger national identity. Okay, so we don't see ourselves as vehemently different. We see ourselves as one nation, as one people, okay, all belonging to Singapore, regardless of what makes us different. Okay, so of course the organizations that have been created to make this common space thing happen, okay, there are a few. First, we have what we call the IRCC, so the Interracial and Religious Confidence Circle. Okay, so this is something is present in every constituency in Singapore. Okay, essentially there are local organizations that create or organize such interfaith, inter-ethnic activities. Okay, to allow each other to understand, what makes us different, to understand different faiths, different beliefs, different practices. Okay, sometimes they also hold these dialogue sessions. Okay, just for people to share their views, alright, and to understand each other's views as well. Okay, so this is how we create common space in Singapore. Second, onepeople.sg, this organization, alright, canteen is for youth, okay, obviously, right, is where event where it emphasizes the importance of harmony to youths and teens in Singapore. Okay, it's important, all right, that we inculcate the people of Singapore with the idea of a harmonious society or racial harmony, religious harmony from young. Okay, because a lot of things really, the stereotypes, the disagreements, everything, a lot of it stems from our childhood days. Okay, so it is very important that we actually have uh, policies or events like canteen to be able to educate, okay, or to show youth, all right, the importance of harmony, also about different faiths, okay, what makes us different, why are we doing this and whatnot. Okay, so it's important for us to do that. All right, this is part of common space as well. And then the last one, okay, you probably heard it before, is a people's association. Now, this is probably the oldest of the three. Right, it was established before Singapore's independence. Okay, its goal is always to get Singaporeans to interact with one another and form cohesion, lah, essentially. All right, so a lot of activities. We work together with the RC's Residence Committee. They work together with community centers and all these things. Okay, just to get people of the same, or rather in within the same area, to come together and do different things, a bit baking lah, or doing something for the community, volunteering, all these things organized by the People's Association. Okay, so that's kind of the point of this organization. Okay, so now we know about the interactions. Let's move on to the benefits of society. Okay, the first benefit we're gonna talk about is the exchange and appreciation of culture. Okay, so let me just use a different way to mark this. Okay, here. Exchange and appreciation of culture, alright? When we have exchanges between people of different race, different religion, different background, okay, it gives us an opportunity to appreciate one another's differences. Okay, be it, differences in our fashion or culture, sorry, or cuisines, or the practices, our celebrations, festivals, all these kind of thing. When we have such differences, we are able to experience a lot of these things. Okay, rather than we just have one standard thing lah. Okay, so when we have diversity, it brings out a lot of interesting things for us to be able to experience. Okay, and of course, one of the things that it does do is to create fusion, result in fusion. Okay, so when we mix different cultures together, okay, we get fusion. Okay, we'll learn more about this in globalization. Now, food, music, fashion. I think you remember McDonald's Singapore used to have a nasi lemak burger. Okay, this is known as fusion cuisine. Okay, so cultural hybridization, something that you'll learn in a later unit as well. Okay, so nasi lemak, nasi lemak itself is already a hybrid of different cultures and different influences. Okay, all the way from down the Malaysian peninsula. Alright, and then we make it into a burger. It now has Western, Chinese, Malay, Indian cuisines. Okay, it's all a fusion of these few different cultures, and of course, this is representative of our CMIO system in Singapore. Okay, so this is the interesting opportunities and outcomes that come as a result of diversity. Okay, this is one of our benefits. Okay, the second benefit we're going to talk about is more about skills and knowledge. Okay, so when like I said before, alright, immigrants, migrants come to Singapore sometimes to study and work. So during this process, okay, there will always be opportunities for these foreign students or workers to come and interact with people in Singapore. Okay, so it has interesting outcome because these foreigners may be talented in certain ways, so they can transfer what they know, their skills, their knowledge to our locals as well, and we can do this vice versa. So we can share with them, they can share with us. Okay, so for example, the Biomedical Research Council (BMRC), okay, is one of the schemes, okay, that is specifically created to allow foreigners and Singaporeans to come together to learn from one another and to create some new amazing things. Okay, for instance, the H1N1 flu vaccine. Okay, the collaboration between Singaporeans and these foreigners, right, it created something as important as the H1N1 flu vaccine. Okay, and you can see this with COVID-19 as well. Okay, with the vaccines and then international cooperation between people. Okay, so BMRC is a Singapore thing which actually allows and funds foreigners to come to Singapore and they work together. Okay, so this can come up with like a lot of positive outcomes for not just Singapore but for the world at large as well. Okay, this is why it's a benefit. Okay, so the exchange of skills and knowledge between Singaporeans and foreigners, or foreigners and Singaporeans, okay, we can create amazing new things. Okay, now we talk about the challenges. Okay, so the problems with such a diverse society. First, okay, we're going to talk about prejudice and misconception. Okay, so essentially, in Singapore, right, there are a lot of opportunities, like we said, to interact with one another. But As a result of this increased interaction, sometimes we also have increased misunderstanding. Okay, between any two people, this will happen. Okay, so perhaps this is due to people assuming certain things about other people. Perhaps it's also about the lack of understanding. Okay, so we don't understand why other people that are different from us do this thing in a certain way. Okay, and that's problematic. All right, so when we make assumptions about somebody based on the things that make them different from us, nationality, ethnicity, race, SES, this is what we call stereotyping. Okay, you might have heard the word stereotype before. Aish, sorry. Okay, the word stereotype. Okay, this word stereotype essentially is a assumption. All right, most of the time is negative. Right, it's dangerous because we form prejudices. Okay, through negative stereotyping, which as a result will cause breakdown in harmony. Now, because of course people don't like it, when you stereotype them, and you already don't like them because you have this wrong assumption about them. Okay, then in the end, harmony breaks down. Okay, so it's important that we know not to stereotype one another based on these random assumptions. Right? Prejudice itself, okay, is essentially a negative bias towards a certain group. Okay, prejudice is negative bias. Okay, most of the time it's negative lah. Of course, the word itself has can be neutral, but most of the time when we talk about prejudice, is most of the time is negative bias. Okay, an example of this is Islamophobia. Okay, so the concept of Islamophobia, okay, essentially is a prejudice against people who practice the Islamic faith, right? And this became ever more prevalent, okay, especially in the US or Western countries, okay, because of the 9/11 terrorist attack. Okay, the terrorists were suspected to be Muslims, so a lot of these Muslim Americans who did nothing wrong, they're completely innocent, they became victims of what we call hate crimes. For example, like attacks lah, or being abused verbally or physically, just because they are of a certain race or a certain ethnicity. Okay, even though these Muslim Americans, they were patriotic, they condemned completely the violence, they were still subject to their own violence by these racist people. Okay, or even public officials like police officers. Okay, this is extremely terrible. All right, this situation caused a breakdown in harmony not just in the US but all around the world. Okay, and it's still going on today, right? Yeah, recently with the COVID-19 problem, a lot of Asians started to become victims of hate crimes as well. Okay, so it is, you can see the major impact that prejudice and stereotyping have on our harmony. It can cause so many people to get injured, to get hurt, and it sows discord in our society. In Singapore, okay, although we are multiracial, doesn't mean we don't have racism, doesn't mean we don't have such problems as well. Okay, we also have the share of prejudice. 2010, a Christian pastor made disparaging remarks about Buddhism. Okay, it's essentially a form of hate speech. As a result, a lot of people went online and then they voiced their opinions on it, and then in the end, it caused religious intolerance and mistrust for a while lah. Okay, even though he apologized, the pastor apologized eventually, it still doesn't negate the effect of religious harmony that was affected. Okay, so everybody was already affected by this particular situation. Okay, so you can see even one person's comments, one person's actions can cause a major impact. All right, so this is why it is important to be responsible about what we say online. All right, next, just in 2021, which is last year, right, there was a polytechnic lecturer, all right, who was captured in a video making racist remarks to an interethnic couple. Okay, so this was posted on the social media. Okay, so they were confronted by the fact, okay, this Singaporean victim was half Indian, half Filipino. They were confronted by this lecturer about the fact that his girlfriend was half Chinese and half Thai. Okay, So this lecturer obviously did not appreciate the fact that they were inter-ethnic couple, and then they ended up, getting into a verbal argument about this. Okay, of course, like I said, although you can rescind your argument, you can apologize and whatnot, but in the end, the effect has already been solidified. It has already happened, and the discord has already been solved. Okay, so again, it is important we must be clear what is fact, what is prejudice, what is opinion. Okay, especially when it comes to race and religion. We don't want to destroy our multicultural, racial society in Singapore and anywhere else in the world, in fact. Okay, so even in such a peaceful and tolerant society like Singapore, where we've grown used to multiracialism, okay, or multiculturalism, okay, there will still be problems like this. Okay, there will still be problems like this. Now, discrimination is another term that you also hear quite frequently when it comes to this topic. Okay, essentially the definition of discrimination is the unjust or prejudicial treatment of different categories of people. Okay, most notably race and religion. Okay, so essentially we treat somebody differently, or actually we treat somebody unjustly. We deny them opportunities. We attack them or whatnot. Okay, just because they are of a certain group. Okay, in this case we talk about race and religion. Okay, so in Singapore's housing rental market, for example, it is a very big problem in Singapore. You can see that a lot of times these hosts, okay, will refuse to rent their property to people who are of a certain race or a certain nationality. Okay, this is all because of negative stereotyping. Okay, so you can see negative, okay, let me just draw something. Negative stereotypes can cause prejudice, and the most serious form of prejudice is discrimination. Okay, yeah, so as you can see, although these people themselves did nothing wrong, just because the owners or whoever stereotyped them based on their race, based on their nationality, they refuse to rent to them. Okay, and of course this creates a lot of inconvenience, right? For these people, they need accommodation, yet they can't get accommodation by no fault of their own. So this also leaves a bad impression on us, right? Especially if it was an expat or it was foreigners just coming here for a temporary stay. Okay, so this is discrimination in Singapore. Okay, the failure to prevent prejudice and misconception from taking root, especially at a young age, will cause great harm to our society. We must interact more. We must understand more so that we can prevent stereotypes from happening. The more we understand about one another's differences, the less likely we are the less likely we are to have misconceptions. Okay, the less likely we are to have misconceptions. A lot of times, okay, because of misconceptions, we have prejudice or stereotype. Okay, and then tension as well. Okay, so this is something that we need to take note of. Okay, be it for ourselves, be it in education, be it as parents or people, leaders, essentially. All right, so we must prevent prejudice by increasing understanding. Okay, this is probably the only way to be able to at least mitigate the problem here. All right, yeah. Next, the other challenge of living in diverse society is the competition for resource. Okay, so just now was more about social, more about discrimination. Okay, in this time we're talking about economy wise, okay, or rather jobs wise. Okay, so with more immigrants coming to Singapore, all right, we have competition with resource. Resources include anything from jobs to opportunities to living space to healthcare and whatnot. Okay, so first concern that we have, standard of living. Now, especially in today's time where there's inflation is wreaking havoc everywhere, right? People are more and more concerned over the rise in prices of goods and services. Okay, with more foreigners, you will realize that the competition in Singapore has increased. Okay, competition has increased with more immigrants coming to Singapore. Okay, because there's now more people that you have to compete with as compared to before this influx. Now, a lot of people are worried, all right, that foreigners will take away their jobs, all right, because as we discussed previously last time, foreigners are willing to work for much less, right? So perhaps some older workers or white collar, blue collar workers, they are worried that foreigners will just take over their jobs because same amount of work, less you need to pay the employee. Okay, companies, who doesn't want that? All right, so this is a concern for them. Okay, so you must understand that, okay, sometimes when these foreigners come here to work, they work in jobs that don't require as much skills, all right, and it's jobs that we so desperately need, yet our own Singaporeans don't really want to partake in such an industry. Okay, for example, construction, shipping, cleaning, sanitation, all these are vital industries, but not many Singaporeans prefer to work in these industries. Okay, so it's essentially foreign workers who come to Singapore to build our HDB, to build our buildings, to clean our streets. Okay, so you must realize that there is actually a positive outcome to immigration. Okay, we are complementing our workforce. Okay, complementing our workforce. Yeah. Okay, so like I said before, some people believe that because of foreign workers, they have depressed wages, so the salary goes down. Okay, the number of Singaporeans unemployed is actually only around 3.3%. I know it may have increased during COVID, but prior to COVID, this still happens. Okay, this type of discrimination still happens, or rather, this type of ideas against foreigners still happens, but the unemployment rate was quite low. Okay, however, there are still people who are going to express their frustration, all right, especially that foreigners are taking jobs away from them. Okay, so the government has to respond to this one way or another, right? Because you cannot just leave people there and then to argue and argue and argue, get nothing gets addressed. Okay, that's not a good thing. So we are taking measures now to reduce, all right, the number of foreigners coming to Singapore. Okay, this includes the levy for work permit holders. Okay, reduce quota for S pass, E pass, and to convince companies to reduce dependence on foreigners. Okay, recently there's a new I think there's a new employment pass, right, for I think different type of worker lah. Okay, so as you can see, we have done a lot of measures. We're taking a lot of measures to reduce the number of foreigners coming to Singapore, so that our locals can be prioritized and our locals can still feel like they are, you know, being a part of this particular employment scene, right, and they're not overly competitive lah, when because of the many foreigners that come here, end up they lose jobs. No, okay, we are taking a lot of measures to prevent that from happening. You can see at the bottom, in fact, the government has made it mandatory for employers who want to hire workers on e-pass to first advertise these positions in the Singapore Job Bank. Okay, essentially to prioritize Singaporeans to take these jobs, okay, before foreigners. Okay, so apart from jobs, other parts of standard of living, like I said, public transportation, okay, and hospitals and housing. Okay, a lot of people are just arguing that, hey, more foreigners come here, my MRT is being squeezed, there's more people on the MRT will break down even more. Okay, be it HDB, people come here, they come PR, they go and buy HDB house. Okay, end up I don't have a house, plus it's becoming more expensive, right? So these are all concerns with what we call standard of living lah. So this general term standard of living refers to all these things. Okay, same thing, the government must respond. The government responded by reducing congestion, buying new buses, adding more trains, building new railway lines, controlling the price of housing, okay, and building hospitals. Okay, so with every problem we have to respond or at least mitigate some of the effects of these problems. Okay, so although yes, they do bring competition, they do bring some concerns over standard of living, but we must always understand, okay, that foreigners are there to complement our economy, not to take over. Okay, so this word complement, okay, is a very important word that you can use in your exams as well. Okay, complement the economy, not take over the economy. Okay, so this is what the government has been emphasizing on for a long time, and we do need foreign workers to complement us, especially with the problems we discussed previously: brain drain, aging population, low birth rate. All the more we need these people to come from other countries to help out in our economy. Okay. Okay, the last part, we're going to talk about this concerns over social mobility. Again, remember in Unit 4, we talk about social mobility as the movement from one SES to another. Okay, now that we have a greater wage level between skilled and unskilled jobs, okay, the income gap is widened, more and more people will be frustrated about social mobility. Same thing, we already have the existing problem of an income gap. If we bring in more foreigners, we are increasing competition again, right? Which leads to greater problems of social mobility. You are less likely, okay, to be able to move SES because you have a greater competition now. Okay, and lower skilled Singaporeans have found it difficult to get jobs here because low skill jobs, a lot of it moved to cheaper countries like Malaysia or Indonesia. Okay, lower labor costs there. Okay, so the problem with social mobility, a lot of people blame foreigners, okay, for making social mobility all the more difficult to obtain. Okay, so how do we address this? We address it by retraining ourselves, retraining our employees, retraining the people lah, essentially. So for them to remain relevant in this new economy, in this day and age, they must have a certain skill set. Okay, keep learning. That's why we are skill switcher. That's why we have all these programs. We promote lifelong learning, right? This is why. Okay, we must continue to stay relevant, and the only way to do that is to continuously learn. That's all. Okay, so this is how we are mitigating this particular issue. Okay, again, you talk about meritocracy, right? Everybody will have opportunity to move up the SES ladder, not just people who are well-to-do or just because they are prioritized over certain things. No, meritocracy, everybody has a chance to succeed. Everybody is able to succeed. Okay, they have the opportunity to succeed. It is not differentiated based on what makes us different, based on our income, based on our background. Meritocracy. Okay, so that is all, okay, for this particular chapter. So you've learned about the interactions in such a society. You have learned about the benefits, okay, of living in a diverse society. So your culture is becoming more interesting, more diversified. Our skills and knowledge, we facilitate the transfer because we have diversity. Okay, so people can share their ideas, share their knowledge with one another, and we can make great things. Okay, but the challenges, of course, more of these misconceptions and prejudice will occur, and also there are concerns over resources because there's greater competition. Okay, as a result, tensions arise. Alright, so that is all for this particular chapter. Okay, it's not too difficult. You just need to utilize some of these important keywords that I've already highlighted previously and remember some examples. Okay, so that's all for today's lecture. Okay, if you have any questions, same thing, just leave it in the comment section below. Please don't mind, you could leave us a like and subscribe to our channel. We work really hard on these materials and videos for all of you. Alright, there will be a lot more videos coming up very, very soon. Okay, on different subjects as well, especially now closer to the 2022 O-level examinations. Okay, so please stay tuned for that. Okay, thank you very much for your continued support. I hope this has helped you in understanding this particular idea. Okay, and we'll see you in the next lecture. Bye bye.